So again,
At the forefront of politics.
Our enemy is Trump. He is the enemy. We got to unite. If we're not a united party, we lose to Trump.
On the front lines of activism.
There's certain fights, if we don't engage, they win. This is a fundamental question of who we are.
And delivering your daily dose of comedy.
Donald Trump, when he had his physical, they had his blood pressure, and mine is higher than his. Oh. And the irony is mine is higher because of him.
From the blue wave.
We flipped. Enough seats to take control of the House. We control the House.
To 2020 and beyond. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters. Thursday, February 6th. I'm Dean Obeidallah. As always, here to be your MBFF, your special Democratic primary MBFF, because there's so much going on. We're going to get into all of it. Reminder, Monday, I'm going to be in Manchester, New Hampshire, and now so is Michelangelo Signorelli. We're going to be broadcasting live back-to-back, the Red Arrow Diner in Manchester, New Hampshire. Come out. We'd love to have you there or have some of you on the show. Free food. Not kidding. Get a menu. It's a limited menu, but it's some really great stuff. Come by, say hi to Michael. He's there 3 to 6. I'm there 6 to 9 doing my show live. It'd be great to meet you. And again, I'm only there Monday. Michael's there Tuesday as well. Red Arrow Diner, Manchester. Hope you'll come out Monday, say hi, have some food, and talk about the race. And you can come on. And on my show, I always say, you're my guest for certain segments. In this case, you could be my guest in person in the diner because we're going to do that. Matt, my producer's there, and love to have you on. So today we saw Donald Trump post-impeachment, post-trial. And in the last few days, we've seen it as we knew what was going to happen. But today, we'll play some stunning clips of Donald Trump. But every Republican senator, every single one who voted to acquit Donald Trump, in my view, and I'm being very fair when I say this, I believe they are complicit in any misconduct Donald Trump does in the future. From crimes to bigotry to sexism. In the past, no, they're not responsible for that. But here they had a chance to at least vote to convict Trump. Because maybe if 10 had voted to convict Trump, he would have not been removed, but that would have scared Trump even more. But considering Mitt Romney was the only patriot in the GOP, instead Donald Trump has used that as an opportunity to bash Mitt Romney left and right. I first want to play Nancy Pelosi today. Speaker Pelosi had a press conference and explained why she tore up the speech yesterday. And I think this is fundamentally important to hear the reasoning why, because it makes all the sense in the world. So here's clip number 1, Pelosi from today.
So again, I extended the hand of friendship to him, to welcome him as the President of the United States to the People's House. It was also an act of kindness because he looked to me like he was a little sedated. He looked that way last year too, but he didn't want to shake hands. That meant nothing to me. It had nothing to do with my tearing up. That came much later. And, a speed reader, I just went right through that thing. So I knew what was coming when I saw the compilation of falsehoods. But then when I heard like the first quarter or third, then I started to think there has to be something that clearly indicates to the American people that this is not the truth. And he has shredded the truth in his speech. He's shredding the Constitution in his conduct. I shredded his State of His Mind address. Thank you all very much.
State of His Mind address. Interestingly, Speaker Pelosi brings up something subtly there that others have emailed me about. And please email me. I'd love to hear from you, Dean at deanofradio.com. Why is there not live fact-checking of the speech right on the crawl, right below it? Elie Mystal was on last night here, and we had this conversation. He brought up the same thing. And that maybe would have not required Nancy Pelosi to indicate to the American people what you just heard was a buffet of lies. This is not the reality. Trump has made up his own reality. He's now living in it and selling it to people. And then Donald Trump went to the National Prayer Breakfast this morning before he gave his other speech. And the National Prayer Breakfast is nonpartisan. In fact, it's bipartisan. Nancy Pelosi is there on the dais. She spoke as well. There are members of Congress of both sides. There are faith leaders there. This is not a pep rally for Trump. This is a opportunity for people who have faith and are religious to come together, and the president and past presidents have addressed it. In fact, I want to play a short clip of President Obama from last year, from 2016. And the reason I'm playing this is because I think Donald Trump has so normalized what is so horrific and so beyond the pale that we forget what a real president sounds like. Because now we hear Trump and we take it for granted there's going to be a guy just meandering and making all about himself and going off the speech and talking about how he's a victim and everything's about him. We're now used to that. Donald Trump has succeeded at normalizing that. But I keep pushing every way possible to remind you, this is not normal. This will not be accepted as the new normal. We are going to fight it. So here was what a real president sounds like at the National Prayer Breakfast before I played Trump. Here's President Obama, 2016, talking about fear. And I actually found this kind of uplifting. It's just about a minute of it. It went longer. But he talked about fear and dealing with fear. And subtly, I think he was, it was February 2016. Trump's out there, had his Muslim ban already and demagoguing it up. But here's a real president, clip number 2.
Alternatively, fear can lead us to succumb to despair or paralysis or cynicism. Fear can feed our most selfish impulses and erode the bonds of community. It is a primal emotion, fear, one that we all experience. And it can be contagious, spreading through societies and through nations. And if we let it consume us, the consequences of that fear can be worse than any outward threat. For me, and I know for so many of you, faith is the great cure for fear.
So, for those, I have many friends here who listen to the show and email me, they're atheists. When he says faith there, I don't want you to view it as just a religious, dogmatic faith. It's the idea of faith in humanity, a faith in each other. And I think in the time of Trump, we need that because there are many who are concerned. What happens if Trump wins? What's the future of this nation? And that fear can lead to despair, as President Obama told us. And it's faith. It can be for religion, for those who are religious. It can be your faith in our success in the past, or it can be your faith in that we are going to work together and that we are better than Donald Trump. And I thought that was important to play. It also was to send the message, that's what the prayer breakfast is about. This moment of renewal and regenerating and building bonds and spiritual renaissance for people. And then there was Trump today. And this, again, cannot be the new normal. We have to fight back against it. Here's Donald Trump at the prayer breakfast. And guess who he talked about? Was it about spirit, renewal, our fellow persons working together, helping people? Nope. It was about one person, Donald John Trump. Clip 3.
Our great country and your president have been put through a terrible ordeal by some very dishonest and corrupt people. They have done everything possible to destroy us, and by so doing, very badly hurt our nation. They know what they are doing is wrong, but they put themselves far ahead of our great country. I don't like people who use their faith as justification for doing what they know is wrong. Nor do I like people who say I pray for you when they know that that's not so. So many people have been hurt, and we can't let that go on.
That was the National Prayer Breakfast. It was just about Trump and lashing out and attacking Mitt Romney because he said his faith mandated he made the choice that he did. And Nancy Pelosi, who says, I pray for Donald Trump, lashing out against both. Reverend William Barber tweeted, because Trump walked into this breakfast and held up a big paper to all these ministers acquitted. That's what National Prayer Breakfast. It's just about him. It's always about him. And William Barber tweeted, Trump just walked into the National Prayer Breakfast and didn't bow in submission to God, but held up papers saying acquittal and flaunted his supposed glory and victory. What's worse, preachers and many other attendees applauded him. Now, in response to Donald Trump saying Nancy Pelosi doesn't pray for him, Nancy Pelosi responded afterwards. Here's clip number 4, Nancy Pelosi today.
Could you describe what you were thinking this morning as the president said that impeachment was a terrible ordeal put through by corrupt, dishonest people, by which he meant you and other Democrats, and also his suggestion that you don't actually pray for him?
I don't know if the president understands about prayer or people who do pray, but we do pray for the United States of America. I pray for him. I pray for President Bush, still President Obama, because it's a heavy responsibility. And I pray hard for him because he's so off the track of our Constitution, our values, our country, the air our children breathe, the water they drink, and the rest. He really needs our prayers. So he can say whatever he wants. He can say whatever he wants, but I do pray for him, and I do so sincerely.
So Speaker Pelosi says she prays for him. And Donald Trump has no humanity. So if someone's praying for him, he doesn't like it. And then, interestingly enough, Senator John Tester, a Democrat from Montana, who's very mild-mannered, who doesn't really get involved in these kind of fighting stuff or insults back and forth, was on CNN and asked by the anchor, what do you make of Donald Trump attacking Mitt Romney's faith at the National Breakfast? And the response by Tester took the anchor back, took me aback as well. I didn't expect it from Tester. It was delivered very calmly. But clearly John Tester, as a Democrat, respects what Mitt Romney does, did. And here is John Tester, clip number 5. This happened.
He made a decision based on the facts and based on the gravity of the situation, which was a very solemn and a very important decision. I think that he's probably catching a lot of heat for making a decision, but that's part of what leadership's about. You listen to the information and you make the best decision you can. And I think it's ironic that the president goes after him, a man who had an affair with a porn star while his wife was pregnant. That's the ultimate of ironies.
That's a mic drop moment by a very calm, he's a big guy, John Tester, if you don't know him physically, but soft-spoken, and there just ripped a hole in Trump, saying he's talking about Mitt Romney's faith when this guy cheated with a porn star while his wife was pregnant. In fact, Donald Trump, both Stormy Daniels, who was the porn star, appeared to be a one-night stand, and that was shortly after the baby was born. Karen McDougal, who was not a porn star, but who was a Playboy model, had a 6-month relationship with Donald Trump, and that extended through the pregnancy to after the baby was born. That's who Trump is, the guy who cheats on his pregnant wife. A guy who cheats on his pregnant wife. That's who Donald Trump is. And then Donald Trump had a press conference, a formal one, to address impeachment, and that he was vindicated. And again, to show you what a normal president does, what a real president does, as opposed to Trump, who wants to normalize what should never be normal, here is Bill Clinton. Day after the Senate voted and he's acquitted, and he walks out to the Rose Garden and has this to say. Clip number 6, please.
Now that the Senate has fulfilled its constitutional responsibility, bringing this process to a conclusion, I want to say again to the American people how profoundly sorry I am for what I said and did to trigger these events and the great burden they have imposed on the Congress and on the American people. I also am humbled and very grateful for the support and the prayers I have received from millions of Americans over this past year. Now I ask all Americans, and I hope all Americans, here in Washington and throughout our land, will rededicate ourselves to the work of serving our nation and building our future together. This can be, and this must be, a time of reconciliation and renewal for America.
So there's Bill Clinton. He's contrite, he's remorseful, and he hopes that we can come together. Then I'll play a little from Donald Trump's speech today. And, surprisingly, Donald Trump was also remorseful and put his hand out to the Democrats and said, let's work together. I'm obviously kidding. It was all about Trump. It went over an hour long, meandering. And I tweeted about if anyone's a doctor, what do they think Trump is on? Because something is not. This is way beyond normal. You heard him in the morning, the prayer breakfast. His voice was like, I don't know, some kind of monster was in him. I don't know what it is. And Speaker Pelosi said he looked sedated So here's Trump. Forget what he looks like. Here he is talking about those who push for impeachment are evil. So I'm evil to Donald Trump. Here is Matt. Let's play clip number 7, please.
We've been going through this now for over 3 years. It was evil. It was corrupt. It was dirty cops. It was leakers and liars. And this should never, ever happen to another president, ever. I don't know that other presidents would have been able to take it. Some people said no, they wouldn't have. But I can tell you, at a minimum, you have to focus on this because it can get away very quickly. No matter who you have with you, it can get away very quickly.
And Donald Trump went on. He cursed at the event. Lower third on CNN said vindictive and vulgar. He was filled with venom over an hour, lashing out against the Democrats by name, lashing out against Mitt Romney, praising his supporters. And this was in the White House. This was not a pep rally. And in the White House, there's Bill Barr. There are other cabinet officials, Republican members of Congress at the emotional pep rally for Donald Trump to let him vent for literally over an hour, meandering. And he goes after Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi by name. Clip number 8, please.
So I've always said they're lousy politicians, but they do two things. They're vicious and mean. Vicious. These people are vicious. Adam Schiff is a vicious, horrible person. Nancy Pelosi is a horrible person. And she wanted to impeach a long time ago when she said, I pray for the president. I pray for the president. She doesn't pray. She may pray, but she prays for the opposite. But I doubt she prays at all.
So there's Donald Trump saying, Schiff, Pelosi. He went on and on. There's no need to listen to his garbage. You've seen his Twitter feed. It just came to life there. Donald Trump saying they're horrible. Democrats are evil. We're evil. The truth is, I'm going to be very honest about this. If you don't support Trump, if you criticize Trump like we do, like I do, like all of us do collectively, Trump hates us. He actually hates us. I think he despises us. And he wants his base to despise us, not to view us as fellow Americans, but as who disagree, but as the enemy. And you can hear it in his vindictiveness today and his vitriol. And it's not just Schiff, it's not just Pelosi, it's us, all of us who oppose him. That we are not taking a knee to the king. And he will do anything between now and November 3rd. Anything, everything, things you can't think of, he will do. He's already begun to do things. You had the Republicans last night. We heard Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson, 2 Republican senators, requesting documents from the Secret Service on Hunter Biden's travel in 2016. Why is that relevant to the U.S. Senate in 2020? It's not. But they're doing Donald Trump's bidding. He's using the apparatus of government to investigate his political opponents. This is like Richard Nixon did, but Nixon did it on the down low. No one knew he was doing it. Trump has these guys doing it out in the front. It's still wrong. You can't use the apparatus, our tax dollars, to help your campaign. That's what he's doing. What else is going on? Donald Trump is embracing bigots, horrible, vile bigots, because that's Trumpism. Trumpism, to me, celebration of cruelty, bigotry, and sexism. That is Trumpism. And for example, just 2 days ago, I just wrote about this for the Daily Beast. It'll go up over the weekend. 2 days ago, Donald Trump sent out a letter supporting, it was a campaign finance letter to fundraise, together with a woman named Laura Loomer, who most people are not going to know. You're lucky you don't know her. A vile anti-Muslim bigot who's running for Congress as a Republican, of course, in Florida, doing really good, raising money. So Trump wants to tap into her base. They sent a letter out collectively together. Laura Loomer has called Islam a cancer. She has said that there's no such thing as a moderate Muslim. This is all in writing in the last year. This is not like 10 years ago. She said they're all the same. She's called Muslims savages and say she's a proud Islamophobe. That's like saying you're a proud white supremacist. She's endorsed white supremacists in Canada. She went to Canada to endorse this woman, Faith Goldie, who was running for Toronto mayor, who's a white supremacist who's recited and defended the 14 words of the neo-Nazi mantra. Laura Loomer's with her. They're buddies. And Trump is endorsing her. He actually did a tweet saying raise money for her as well. This Laura Loomer is so bad, she is banned from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and PayPal for her open white nationalism and anti-Muslim bigotry and anti-immigrant stuff. She's banned from all those platforms. And she's only 26. This is Trumpism. Trump will be gone one day, but Trumpism is alive, and Trump wants this to continue. He's found Laura Loomer. So you've got that garbage. And then we learned last night, and this should be a bigger story, although the impact on people is smaller, it sends a message. Last night we learned from the Department of Homeland Security, if you live in New York, where I live, we can no longer apply for global entry, which most people don't use it, but global entry is you travel internationally, you apply for it, and you can go past customs really quickly. Why am I ineligible for global entry? Because the state of New York has sanctuary cities and won't comply with the Trump administration in their demand for driver's license information. So to punish everyone in my state, collective punishment of every New Yorker who wants global entry, we can't get it because we will not comply with Trump's demand for the DMV records of all citizens. At first, that flies in the face of what Republicans used to be about. They used to be about states' rights. That doesn't matter anymore. It's about Trump's rights, not states' rights. They used to be the ones, the federal government's overreaching. Nope, nothing matters. All that matters is making Trump happy. Secondly, and I wish the media would report this, why did he pick New York? First of all, that law passed in June. He's doing it now. It's 2020. It's red meat for his base in election year. Secondly, more importantly, the New York State Attorney General and the Manhattan DA are investigating Donald Trump. So that's part of the reason he's being punitive. He's using the apparatus of government to punish New York because we here, through our elected officials, are investigating Donald Trump's criminality. If you read this in a book, honestly, think about it. If you read in a book, the president was punishing people in a state. Now we have less rights in our state because the anti-corruption people in our state are investigating that person. You'd say, well, that's some corrupt dictatorship. That's not a democracy. That's not a republic. That's some third world nation, banana republic. No, that's the United States of America under Donald Trump. Last night, and I thought about the call, last night a man named Gilbert called, and he's a 75-year-old black man, lives in Texas. And he said, Donald Trump is the worst he's ever seen. And as president, but I imagine in power. And I thought about it. Gilbert's 75. He was born in 1945 or 46. This is a black man living in the South who lived through Jim Crow, who lived through segregation, who lived through black men being strung up to a tree and killed and no justice whatsoever for those families. He lived through a time if you were black moving into a white neighborhood, either you couldn't get the property or if you got it, your house could be firebombed. But all of this with Trump is worse. What he sees in his 75 years is Donald Trump is worse than what he has lived through. And I want people to remember that because Gilbert's age and what he's seen in his life gives us a broader view, a historical view that we are not overreacting to Donald Trump. We are reacting the right way. Donald Trump is a threat. This is not a game. This is not about policy. the disingenuous argument by Trump's lawyers in the Senate. This is an argument on policy. No, this is not policy. This is about values. There's no common ground to be found with any Trump supporter who supports Donald Trump's white supremacy and his racism and his bigotry and his demonizing women who are victims of sexual assault and who come forward. There's no common ground. I'm not meeting them halfway. None of us are. The Trumpism, and Donald Trump again yesterday tweeted he's going to be president forever. This is his running joke. It's not a joke, folks. He's priming his base for when he has to repeal or suspend the 22nd Amendment. He can run again if, God forbid, he wins in 2020. But even if Trump is gone, Trumpism has now been emboldened. And from little things like normalizing the unbelievable, and that's why I played President Obama and President Clinton earlier, to mainstreaming white supremacy, mainstreaming anti-Semitism, mainstreaming anti-Muslim bigotry. He does things that would get a week of headlines any other time, and it goes away in an hour. Donald Trump discriminating against transgender Americans who want to serve in our military gets a couple of days of news, and now we don't even talk about it. Donald Trump allowing federal funding for homeless shelters who literally say no to transgender homeless people simply because they don't like them, because their religion says they don't like them. And the government will still fund those homeless shelters. Should be bigger news, but it's not. Because in this abyss of despicableness and vileness that is Donald Trump, it gets lost. So our fight, our charge is to not allow this to ever become normal. And look, the only antidote I can think of, first, you don't lose hope. Don't give in to the fear. President Obama talked about it, the despair. Fear leads to despair. That's what Trump wants. Second, we get more engaged than ever. Friends who you don't know if they vote or not, get them registered. The only antidote to Trumpism that I can think of, I have no other solutions. If you have some, I'm all ears, is defeating Trump big this November. Barring that, Trumpism will spread and affect our country like a deadly virus, like a cancer. And that's the stakes. And every day, Donald Trump reminds us of that. And on some level, I have to be thankful, because if he didn't, and if he turned to becoming more normal, maybe some people go like, you know what? Well, the stock market's up and my 401k's up, and, you know, he seems to have calmed down. I guess things are going to be okay. They're not. They never will. And on some level, thankfully, Donald Trump reminds us. So let's take a break. I'd love to hear from you about Donald Trump's reaction to this, where we're going. What do you want to see the Democrats do in response to Trump? I mean, right now, our Democrats, and don't be upset, they're fighting each other. This is what happens in primaries, folks. We got Tuesday, it's New Hampshire. Then you've got Nevada, South Carolina, Super Tuesday. They're going to fight each other. This is what politicians do. That's life. We're going to unite after that. And so we don't have a message that's clear. We have a muddled message because we have the candidates all over the place. That's going to change. But let's take a break. I want to come back and hear from you. 866-997-4748 right after this. At this point, the question is not